Hello and welcome back. Today I will investigate some doubtful or questionable notes in the Menuets from Suite 1. Firstly, the E flat and E in bar measure 3 and 7 of Menuet 2. I will use here actually the term bar for measures. To everyone I mentioned these two notes who regards them as being not 100% at ease with them. In fact, the E in bar 7 contributes to the opinion of some that the cello suites, in comparison to the sonatas and partitas for violin, are not as smooth and elegantly written. The E natural in bar 7 just doesn't gel. I just play it. Let's have a look at the early sources, what they tell us about these two notes. The oldest copier, Manuscript B by Johann Kellner, I should say, bar 3, E flat, bar 7, E flat. He was a friend of Bach and certainly had written straight from the manuscript. And this sounds like and Magdalena, his wife, writes bar 3 E, bar 7 E natural, and copier C, Schober, bar 3 E, bar 7 E natural. E, of course, is the same as E natural, and this sounds like and then comes copier D, bar 3 E flat, bar 7 C. The latest manuscript known from the 18th century. He writes like he was a cellist who has played the suites, and this would sound like in the first print by Cotelle and Probst, bar 3 E, bar 7 E natural, the same as Anna Magdalena and copier C. Most prints from Dotzauer on print bar 3 E flat, bar 7 E natural, and this sounds like and we are used to this version. For the first time documented in 1826, never before, neither in manuscript or print. This is somehow staggering and confusing. There are only two sources which write in bar 3 E flat. Johann P. Kellner, the oldest copy, and copier D. So why did everyone decide to follow these two and write and play in bar 3 and E flat? But then everyone decided not to follow them in bar 7. Kellner writes again in E flat, in copier D or the C. To say it bluntly, nothing fits. I personally was so glad to find the C with copier D because it just sounds better than the E natural. I found only the E flat in bar 7 with Kellner recently, and really, if you don't take a magnifying glass and hunt for this note, you will not find it, because there's so many dots and blobs, you can't put the music on the stand and read and play it. Or at least I can't. it's just too messy. All other sources from Magdalena to the first print write in bar 3 an E, not an E flat. How can then everyone make up to play E flat against the written evidence? At least in bar 7, everyone except Kellner wrote in a natural sign. That is in fact totally unnecessary, because in the key signature we have only a B flat, not an E flat. So it is anyway an E, natural, without writing the natural sign in. Something has gone on very funny and illogical. I tried to make sense out of it and to reconstructed possibilities what could have happened. Of course, there are many possibilities, and many went through my mind. But I found it started to make sense. You can go with me or not, but here's a possible train of thought, and I will go through the situations. You have always to keep in mind that everyone involved is human. Impossible human errors exist. We're here not dealing with museum pieces carefully created for being exhibited or documents which have been proofread. We have 4 manuscripts which were either just private notes, like with Kellner, without imagining anyone would read it, or paid jobs for collectors. And again, probably no one would ever play or read it. And it looks like no one did. No fingerings or corrected bowings are present, even when bowing mistakes are obvious. Back to Johann Kellner. Johann Kellner knew Bach personally, probably went to Bach's house and copied there. When he had questions, he would ask Bach, like, "Hi Johann, this E in the Menuet here sounds funny. Sounds to me it should be in A flat." And Bach, "Oh, thanks Johann, I forgot. Because of the key signature, yes, it's an E flat, have to correct it." Kellner, "Both times?" Bach, "Yes, the second time I wrote it in." And Kellner, "I thought that's what you meant. The flat nearly looks like a natural, a bit long and thin." And Bach, "Yeah, it's a bit long, but you wouldn't need to write a natural in. It would be anyway an E." Johann Kellner, "Thanks Johann, that's what I thought. But then I thought better ask." That's an imagined conversation, but something has to make sense. I want to mention too, Kellner was a composer himself. And when composers write music down, they often hum the melody in the head and trip over a strange or wrong note, detected even without physically playing. Also, as a composer and organist, he was familiar with pieces in G minor with only 1 flat in the key signature. Seeing it in Bach's script, he was probably on guard because forgetting to indicate the E flat was a too common typo. Probably had happened to him too. And now to Magdalena. We need to imagine that this job Magdalena did of writing the suites was probably paid an extra money, probably written in the evening after all the children had been put to bed. Having said that, she had 12 children, plus had still to care for some of the other further children of Bach's first wife. If you look at her writing, it's exquisite, not written in a rush, but taking time. Just compared to today, with only 1 child or none, we don't even write out complete words, using autocorrect, speaking in abbreviations, using remotes, plus so many machines which make household tasks shorter. Well, she didn't have her usual conceptually concentrated day. In Menuet 1, she forgot the first slur, inconsistent with parallel passages, and in Menuet 2, the slurs were getting tiny. She also forgot the ledger line in the last note of bar 22, an E. Some publishers and performers stuck to a D because of the missing ledger line, so playing the D twice in a row. And it sounds like this. I think she wrote the E higher, as we can see, and forgot the line. She would be the only one who would have written a D here. There seems to be an unwritten hierarchy that the height or low of writing a note counts less than the accurate number of ledger lines. Contrary, I've seen several forgotten ledger lines, like in this case here, or also in the bass, when the ledger line of a low C was missing. Here, Anna Magdalena wrote the E high enough, but she forgot the second ledger line for the E. And I wonder why certain bureaucrats believe more in lines than in height. Maybe someone can enlighten me. In Menuet 2, I think she either imagined that the E in bar 3 was an E flat and forgot about the key signature, like Bach did as well. Or she was tired and unengaged, what of course could happen in her circumstances. She actually copied the natural, but wrote the part which could be a flat, a bit thicker, and the down line very thin. And that gave me the idea that Johann Sebastian had written it funny too, as if his pen touched lightly accidentally by moving away from the flat, creating a possible natural. She seemed not sure herself, so she copied it as literal as possible. I think Bach forgot to write the first flat in, a typo. The God of Perfection did a typo. Well, he was human too. That's probably why all cellists played E flat anyway. Many would not have noticed that they played an E flat, and it was not written there, because it just followed naturally after the E flat from the first bar. And they would naturally play the E flat. That would be by casual copiers, and the first print wrote just E. I would think that in Dotzauer's time he saw lots of copies with E's, but no one played it, and probably some with an E flat. They all didn't notice or thought it was a typo, because the E was just too ugly. But everyone thought anyway Bach couldn't have meant it. So what happened with the writer of Manuscript D? In my opinion, he played cello, so he played the script and noticed this pleasing E in bar 3. Maybe he just heard that everyone played E flat. Anyway, he changed it to E flat. He's the only one who changed the E or E flat in bar 7 to C. I can only explain it in the way that other copiers wrote E natural, but he just found it too ugly. Not to contradict the E natural, he chose the C. I mean, he was only a copier and did not have any knowledge that 200 years later thousands of readers would ask themselves, why did he do that? He probably couldn't bring himself to play E natural and escape to the C. Funnily enough, when I discovered what he did, I was really happy. I copied his bowings too, in order to be an honest follower of a manuscript. I couldn't stand the idea of the E natural as well, but didn't want to make an unfaithful decision. And then I recorded subsequently Suite 1 in a version according to Manuscript D. The first editions by Norblin have been described as having been written in a rush, without proofreading. And if you look closely, in both Norblin editions by Cotelle and Probst, the second note in Menuet 1 is a B, but it should be a D. The lack of proofreading of his edition shows. The bowings are also very inconsistent. It looks like a swiftly written 3 slurred was meant to be printed in bar 1 and 5, but the printers took the length of the slurs too literal. They didn't play string instruments, so they couldn't notice the meaning behind the bowing. The first solid edition, where every note was scrutinized, was Dotzauer. To Dotzauer, the 4 manuscripts were probably unknown. It seems all editions had an E or an E flat in bar 3, and he decided for the E flat. As I mentioned, probably everyone played it anyway. In bar 7, it seems, all copies that he saw had an E natural, and he had no way to ignore the fact. He could not make up an E flat because he liked it better. It would have been unfaithful. Well, today we are in another situation. We know the earliest copier wrote both times E flat, and he knew Bach personally. This fact suggests that the E natural was a misread E flat, because the E natural didn't need an extra indication. So the extra indication was a flat, and that's why Kellner wrote it. I must say, I find this hard to state. I recorded several times this Menuet with E flat and E natural. I never liked it, but I had to accept it. I found the C in Manuscript D a relief and recorded it. At least I followed the manuscript. The reading of the messy copy by Kellner is an upset into a tradition of 200 years. I can only say that playing E flat in bar 3 is literally unfaithful to the manuscripts and the first prints. So if you wish to continue playing E in bar 7, just please be consistent and faithful to the early sources. You will need to play E, meaning E natural, in bar 3 as well, both times. Otherwise, it is not a historic, not a faithful version to the sources, but an inconsistent mix, based on just the habit of long exposure to the followers of Dotzauer's version, who very likely didn't have access to a copy of anyone who knew Bach. I hope I don't upset anyone, but it looks like that E flat in bar 3 and 7 is a true original. But I'm not alone. The new Bärenreiter edition from 2018 came to the same conclusion. If you wish, stay with me to listen from my first recording with E flat in both bars 3 and 7. Underneath the context you will find also recording to Manuscript D with E flat in bar 3 and C in bar 7. I hope you will enjoy the greater smoothness of the harmonies, in fact Phrygian, typical for Baroque menuets. But that's a chapter of another talk. There's a collection on my Patreon site. And that's for today. Goodbye for now.